We started with a basic PC setup, OBS and your YouTube channel. We added advanced sound and a great new microphone. And now we're going to add a second camera in part 3 of live streaming from scratch. So let's talk about why you might want to have an external camera and use something other than your built-in camera on your laptop or your desktop. Well, I don't use my built-in camera. So in setting up for this shot to do this video for you guys, I ran into some of the reasons that you might want to have that external camera. One is that you just don't have that much flexibility with the built-in camera. Like right now, you can't see the top of my head, and I'm already scrunching down and have my chair to the lowest setting because I would have to change my entire work environment to use this built-in camera because the ability to aim it and focus it is just not very good. Like, up over here, you're seeing one of my lights, and, I just literally didn't want to do the amount of work it would take to rearrange things so that I could, not have that light in the shot. And, I can move the laptop's screen back, but, then you're going to see my ceiling. I don't want that. So one of the reasons that you might want to use an external camera is just literally because the internal camera just isn't that flexible when it comes to aiming and focusing and getting the right shot you want. Now, I used features of OBS to crop this picture that you're seeing because if you were seeing the whole thing, it would be even worse. Built-in cameras, as I pointed out before, are actually quite good. I mean, in terms of resolution and that kind of thing, focus, automatic focus ability, they don't do a bad job at all. But the ability to get the shot you want is just not very flexible. Now, another reason that you might want a second camera is to work in conjunction with the internal camera because, you might set up your work environment so it works great with the internal camera, no problem. But you still might want a second camera just to, add that little bit of extra interest and engagement for your audience. Aren't you more engaged now? And that's easy to do with the second camera. You can do all kinds of things with that second camera. And once you learn how to add a camera, you'll find you can add a third camera or a fourth camera. You can really go nuts and have a great time with it. Another reason is that, you might want to do some higher resolution 4K stuff. And today's cameras, 4K, I've got a 6K camera. So, you can really get into some good high resolution things, even for live streaming. You can live stream at 4K. So there's a lot of reasons that you might want to add that second camera. So that's what we're going to go through. But right now I'm going to switch to my other regular setup because I'm sitting all scrunched over and it's only a matter of time before my mom starts yelling at me. When you're thinking about adding a second camera, you have many, many choices. Not only of different types of cameras, but of new or used cameras. There's a huge used camera market out there, and you can really get some good deals from many trusted sources. You can make a choice like GoPro. GoPro has many models of cameras, and they're made for these purposes. And you've got to choose one that fits your needs and what you're going to be live streaming. You might want to go for a high-end camera or a mid-range tried and true camera. Again, your needs have to drive that decision. And what I'd like to do is just show you some of the cameras that I have and the reasons that I chose them. So let's take a look. Okay, the first camera I want to show you here is a mid-range camera. This is the Sony Handycam 4K FDR AX53. It's a good camera, very tried and true. It gives a good quality image, allows you to do live streaming in 4K. It's fairly easy to use, and it's been around for a very long time. By the way, I always get a good high quality stand when I can. I really regret it when I have a low quality stand. And this camera is really useful, and I've actually got a couple of them, and I use them all the time. My newest camera is a Blackmagic Pocket 6K cinema camera. And this is a very nice camera. It is a more high-end camera, but it's very high quality. I have only been an owner of this camera fairly recently, so I cannot claim that I'm an expert at it yet, but I'm using it more and more. and I really like the camera. One of the things I'll show you, and the audio will get a little funny here as I do so, is the display on the back, which is really nice. And it has a lot of different modes. This mode uses color to display your shot and let you know how you should be refocusing it. But it's got an extensive menu system and really allows you to do a lot of great things. Easy to control. It also has a remote control capability. So if you're looking for a high-end camera that you can take some 4K videos with, this is a good camera. This camera does not allow you to live stream in 4K. In fact, the live streaming is limited to 1080p. So that's another nice camera. Here's the rig I'm actually doing the recording on. So you can see we have a mirror into forever there. But I'll switch back to, so here's the camera that I've actually been doing the recording on, which is my iPhone, and my iPhone under NDI. So we'll talk about how you can configure this. It's very easy, very nice for having a remote camera setup, and I use this frequently as well. So those are some of the cameras that I use, but again, you got a myriad of choices out there to meet your needs. Let's talk about connecting your camera to your computer. Now, hopefully your camera came with everything or almost everything that you'll need to hook to your computer, depending on your computer's configuration. One of the biggest factors is what kind of interface does it have to plug into it? Is it a USB 2, USB 3, USB-C? Does it actually have an HDMI adapter built in like my Dell laptop does? That's a picture that's changing quite a bit, and so it can change what you have to do to connect and make it pretty hard for me to say, here's exactly what you do. Depends on your computer setup. But what's typical right now is that interfaces are changing a lot. For example, I have a Mac computer that has nothing but USB-C connectors, no HDMI, no USB 2, nothing else to plug a camera into. So this is kind of getting typical. So what I need is two things. I need an adapter of some kind, like this, and the cable that's going to come from the computer. Now, in my case, I don't just need a simple adapter. I want an adapter that's going to work for live streaming. I only have one, and that's the Camlink, and this is a 4K adapter. Now, this is about a $200 adapter. You might not want to get one of those. You can get a $20 adapter that does the same thing. It's just not going to do it at 4K. So this is a typical type of adapter. It has HDMI on one end. It has USB on the other. In this case, USB 2. I suspect that they'll be available with USB-C pretty soon. And this is the cable that I will use to connect it to my camera. It's mini HDMI on one end and HDMI on the other. So the HDMI is going to go into this end of the Camlink. Be sure not to force it because sometimes it's not always easy to figure it out and get it in there. And the other end is going to go on the mini HDMI adapter on the camera, which I'll show you right now. Okay, here's my Sony. I'm going to wing it around here and you'll be able to see the little adapter spot that's going to plug into right there. And that's how I get it into my Sony camera. Okay, so my Camlink on one end is now plugged into this cable, which is going out to my camera. On this end, I can either plug directly into a USB 2 or 3 port, or in my case, where I've got nothing but USB-C, I have to have another adapter. This is going to go USB 2 to USB-C. Not forcing it. And there we go. What could be simpler? Now I'm just going to plug that into my USB-C port and I'm off and running. Now once you have plugged this in, as you'll see in a moment as we configure OBS, it should pop up with the correct interface so that you can just configure this as a video interface. We're going to go through that right now. Okay, here's our status. I have my camera plugged into the cam link. I have the cam link plugged into my computer. Now again, you don't have to use a cam link. You're using something that allows you to take your HDMI camera signal and bring it in to your computer. So what I need to do now is let OBS know about the camera. All right, you can see under our sources here that we have our built-in camera source that we created some time ago. So what I want to do now is I want to add another source. Now I can do that in several ways in OBS, and as you learn more about OBS, you'll find that out. One of the easiest ways that I have is just to add it into the same scene and make it the first source, which allows me to easily switch back and forth, as you'll see in a moment. So I'm going to hit the plus key, and we're going to add another video capture device, and we'll call this our Sony camera. Click OK. All right, then I will use the drop down, and simply by plugging in the cam link, it is recognized, it's ready to be added. So I'll choose cam link, and I'll just use the preset value here. If you use the cam link, you'll see that there are other settings that you can use if you're going to use 4K, and I'll cover that in the 4K section of this series. Right now, I'm just going to choose that default, and you can see that it's previewing as we set this up. Go ahead and click OK. All right, it has added it. So I have my built-in camera, I have my Sony camera, and notice that it is small within the window here. So we can move that around and position and size it as we did previously when we added the FaceTime camera. Get that where we want it. And you'll notice that here in the sources, each has a little eyeball next to it. I can turn off the built-in camera, and now I'm just looking at the, there we go. So by turning this off, turning that on, I can see my initial camera. But what's nice here is that if I just turn this on, it overlays the top, so I don't have to turn the other one off. Again, that camera switching is something that we'll be talking a lot more about. Now I have to look over here. So that's how I can configure the second camera within OBS, in this case with the cam link. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is how to configure your iPhone to be a very, very useful second camera and a roaming camera, because the technology that we are going to configure works over your network so that you don't have to have a wire into your phone, and that gives you a heck of a lot of flexibility. So we're going to use a technology called NDI, Network Device Interface. And there's actually a company that has done a lot of work with this called NewTek. So one of the things that you'll want to do to prepare for this is you're going to want to download a piece of software out of the App Store from NDI called NDI HX. Now this is the very low-tech way to show you this, and if I was a little bit cooler, I would have been able to get NDI Capture integrated so that I would be able to actually just directly get the screenshot off the iPhone, but I wasn't able to do that. So I'll figure that out later and let you know how to do it if I can. So when you download and install this, you'll be able to use the configuration I'm about to show you in OBS to directly integrate your iPhone's video signal into OBS. And that is really cool and really useful to use it as your second camera. So let's go in and look at how we configure OBS to do this. All right, where we're going to start is we're going to do a Google search for NDI OBS. And this article will pop up. Hopefully it will pop up right at the top view as it did for me. I'm going to go ahead and click on that link. That takes us actually to the OBS bulletin board and an article here for OBS NTI, the new tech NDI integration into OBS Studio. And over on the right, there will be a download link, and we will go ahead and use that. That will take us to another article that has the downloads for the different operating systems that are supported: Windows, Mac, Ubuntu, etc. You are going to want to use the Mac OS unless you're on a PC and still following along with this integration, which I'm doing on a Mac. When you click that, you are going to get, depending on your browser, you'll get the download in your browser, and you can go ahead and click on that. That will open the installer, and at that point you're going to be prepared to click on continue, and just basically you're doing a Mac OS install of this package. So I'm going to click on install, and it will ask me for my password. And there we go, it is installed. So that's pretty straightforward, pretty simple installation for you, and that's it. You're installed, and the NDI driver is ready for OBS. Now, having installed the NDI driver, you will need to restart OBS. And when you do restart OBS, you will get this message, because in addition to the NDI driver, you need an NDI runtime on your Mac in order to run it. So go ahead and click on the link and follow the instructions to get the NDI runtime for your operating system, which again is the Mac OS. And that's going to download that second package for the NDI runtime. And just as before, we're going to click on that. And we're going to install that guy. Okay, now when that's done, now once you've completed the installation of the NDI runtime, you need to restart your Macintosh. Then you'll be able to go ahead and restart OBS. Now would also be a good time to start NDI HX on your iPhone and get your iPhone ready to be transmitting high-resolution video at high speed over your wireless. For this section, you'll have to ignore that handsome guy in the video. I have overdubbed this entire section because of audio quality. So what we're going to do now is we're going to configure OBS for our NDI. So when I hit plus under my sources, I'll see there is now a new entry called NDI source. When I click on that, I'll be able to give that a name, which I think I just simply called my iPhone NDI. You can call it whatever you want. And when you click OK, you can configure this. Now, the only configuration we're really worried about here is the source. And this is going to be pointed at your iPhone. So when you begin to type in the name of your iPhone, it will automatically locate it because your iPhone is transmitting NDI if you started the NDI app, as I indicated before we started here. Notice it tells you not only it's NDI, but which of the NDI apps, which is HX Camera, that you're using. And we can click OK. Now that will bring in a window, and what you'll notice there is the same thing that really threw me at first. It's all black. Why is it all black? Well, probably because you have your iPhone face down on the table that you're working on. So pick your iPhone up, and aha, there it is. And hopefully you'll be a little more controlled than I was when I made this video, just kind of winging it around. But that's how easy it is to get your iPhone working with OBS. Now you can size and position that window any way that you want. You can make it full screen like any other camera, but you can also do picture in picture. And of course, that's an OBS general feature, picture in picture, if you have more than one camera. And so you can leave your main video on the screen and just have picture in picture there. That's a really great feature. And you can do that easily if all of your sources are within one scene. But we'll talk about some alternatives before this video is done. So with that, it's pretty easy to set up NDI and your iPhone to have another mobile or static camera available to you. And we'll talk more about that in the next part of this video. One thing you may have noticed in that last clip, that last part of the video, is that there was an audio entry for the NDI iPhone and it was bouncing around. Your NDI devices can absolutely be audio sources as well. So in the case of an NDI iPhone, not only is it mobile and portable and a cool second camera, but it's also a cool source of audio as well. So you might have that out in your studio or whatever you're doing, not only getting a good picture, but also getting some audio for you as well. You need to be aware of that because sometimes you'll forget that and you're all of a sudden getting this second source of audio and your audio is doubling up and all that kind of thing. You need to remember to disable that audio source if you don't want the NDI iPhone to be an audio source. Now, I have an accessory that I want to show you, and this is a very cool accessory, and it's from a company called Zenvo. I hope you'll be able to read this, and it is a Squid Grip tripod. It's a very cool accessory if you're going to use an iPhone or any other camera, including a GoPro, as a mobile second camera. And it just, it can do almost anything. You can put the thing anywhere. The Squid Grip thing is really cool. I attach it to my guitars and do, down the neck guitar shots. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with it. So let's take a look at this thing here real quick. So this is my friend, the Squid Grip. You can see that one of its major features is the incredible flexibility of the legs. You can curl them around things. You can have this camera almost anywhere, and it holds your iPhone or whatever phone you're using that's NDI compatible very well. And I'll just take a second and set it up over here as yet another camera. It's got really flexible 360-degree capability. And let's see if I can get myself in the camera here. So here I am on my main camera. And there we are. You'll notice the difference in the angle, but I just turned my NDI iPhone camera on, and with my tripod, it is a perfect second camera source for static or mobile, audio or not. So that's a great accessory for you to add to your collection if you are going to use your phone as a second camera. This is the end of adding a camera, the third part of our series on live streaming from scratch at Happy Place Home Studio. Now remember, it's not my intention to deep dive in every single one of these areas. That would take a very long time, and there's a lot of great material out there. But one thing I will tell you is that we've briefly touched on scenes and sources, and when you get into multiple cameras, that's where you really start to need scenes and sources. And there's so much flexibility, so many cool things you can do. I touched on the picture-in-picture, that kind of thing. And so if you're really wanting to put together a great live stream, a great show, you'll want to get much more into these areas. So keep moving, keep going on. In our next section, we're going to talk about 4K streaming. We'll see you there.